If what Red Bull just discovered is true, Mercedes could be disqualified before the Japanese Grand Prix even begins. Because hidden inside those viral clips, there's a detail almost nobody noticed. A movement. Not obvious. Not illegal, at first glance. But just enough to raise a terrifying question across the entire grid. Is Mercedes secretly using active aerodynamics, where it's completely forbidden? Here's why this matters. Under the current regulations, only 2 parts of the car are allowed to move. That's it. Everything else must stay completely fixed. No exceptions. No tricks. And yet, the W17 is behaving differently. In slow motion, its front wing doesn't react like any other car. It reacts later, smoother, almost controlled. And that delay could mean only 2 things. Either Mercedes has built the most advanced legal system in Formula 1, or they've just found a loophole that changes everything. Teams are already analyzing the footage. Engineers are questioning the data. And behind closed doors, the word illegal has already been mentioned. Because if this is confirmed, we're not talking about a small advantage. We're talking about a system that could dominate the entire season. And possibly, break the rules without being detected. Stay until the end. Because the final piece of this story is the one that explains everything. Red Bull didn't react immediately. At first, it was just curiosity. A few engineers replaying clips. A couple of analysts slowing down onboard footage. Nothing unusual. Until it became impossible to ignore. Because the more they looked, the less it made sense. And in Formula 1, when something doesn't make sense, it usually means one thing. Someone found something the others didn't. But here's where things take a turn. This isn't just about performance. It's about behavior. The way the car responds mid-corner. The way the front end settles, then adjusts. Almost like it's thinking. And that's not supposed to happen. Because under the 2026 regulations, aerodynamics are brutally simple. You get 2 movable elements. Front wing. Rear wing. That's it. Everything else must remain completely static. No flexibility. No adaptation. No hidden systems. And yet, the W17 is showing signs of adaptation. Subtle. But consistent. And that consistency is what triggered the alarm. Because 1 clip can lie. 2 clips can be coincidence. But when the same behavior appears again, and again, and again, that's a pattern. And patterns are dangerous. Especially when rival teams start comparing data. Because it's not just video anymore. It's sector times, corner speeds, energy deployment. And something very specific stands out. Mercedes is not dominating the straights. They're not even the fastest. Which immediately eliminates one possibility. This isn't about raw power. So where's the advantage coming from? Corners. Every slow corner. Every medium speed section. Every moment where grip matters more than horsepower. That's where the gap appears. And it's not small. It's controlled. Precise. Repeatable. And that's what's bothering Red Bull the most. Because random speed can be explained. But controlled dominance? That requires a system. A system that works every lap. Every condition. Every driver input. And this is where the tension inside the paddock starts to rise. Because now the question is no longer if Mercedes is fast. The question is how. And more importantly, why can't anyone else replicate it? Because if this was just good engineering, someone would have copied it already. That's how Formula 1 works. Nothing stays secret for long. But this is different. And the deeper teams look into it, the more it starts pointing toward something very uncomfortable. Not a clear violation. Not an obvious cheat. But something sitting right on the edge. Something designed to look legal, while behaving just differently enough. And that's exactly the kind of innovation that forces the FIA to act. But not immediately. First, they observe. Then, they measure. Then, they wait. Because acting too soon could mean being wrong. And in Formula 1, being wrong is just as dangerous as being late. So for now, everything remains quiet on the surface. No protests. No accusations. No official statements. But underneath, the pressure is building. Because Japan is coming. And everyone knows, if there is something hidden inside that Mercedes, Suzuka will expose it. And just when teams thought they understood the front wing, another detail started to surface. Quietly. Almost ignored at first. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The rear of the car. Specifically, the diffuser. Because while everyone was focused on the front wing movement, Mercedes was already winning the real battle somewhere else. Under the car. In a place cameras barely capture. And this is where things get serious. There is a slot in the diffuser. A visible opening. Simple in appearance. But extremely complex in behavior. Because that slot allows airflow to pass through in a way that changes how downforce is generated. Not by moving, but by adapting. And here's the key detail. It's completely static. No motors, no actuators, nothing illegal by definition. Which means, on paper, it's allowed. But in reality, it behaves like something much more powerful. Because when airflow is managed correctly under the car, you don't need extreme wing angles. You don't need massive drag. You create grip without paying the usual price. And suddenly, everything starts to connect. The slower top speed, the insane cornering stability, the consistency across laps. It's not one advantage. It's a chain reaction. Front wing behavior, energy distribution, and now, the diffuser working in perfect harmony. But here's the uncomfortable question teams are asking. What if this isn't just smart design? What if this is a system built to simulate active aerodynamics without technically being active? Because that changes everything. That means Mercedes didn't break the rules. They redefined them. And that's much harder to fight. Because you can protest a moving part. You can measure a mechanical system. But how do you ban airflow behavior? How do you regulate something that doesn't physically move? And this is exactly why frustration is growing inside the paddock. Because even if every single component is legal, the result feels unnatural. Too efficient, too precise, too perfect. And when something feels too perfect in Formula One, it usually forces the sport into a corner. Either accept it, or rewrite the rules. But here's where the tension reaches another level. Because not everyone agrees on what's happening. Some engineers believe this is simply the best interpretation of the regulations. Nothing more. Others are convinced there's still something hidden. Something not yet discovered. And that division is dangerous. Because it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty spreads fast. Especially when the next race is Suzuka. A circuit that punishes instability. A circuit that exposes aerodynamic weakness instantly. High-speed direction changes. Long, flowing corners. Relentless pressure on every surface of the car. If there is anything unusual in how the W17 manages airflow, this is where it will show. And teams know it. That's why they're not just preparing their cars. They're preparing their cameras, their sensors, their analysis tools. Because Suzuka is no longer just about winning. It's about revealing. And the moment that car hits those high-speed sections, every secret, every detail, every hidden behavior will be pushed to the limit. And possibly, finally understood. But even that might not be enough. Because the real answer, the one that explains everything, is still hidden. And it's not where most people are looking. But the real story isn't happening on the surface. It's happening in the data. Because while fans see highlights and teams analyze footage, there's another layer that almost nobody talks about. Telemetry. Thousands of data points. Every lap. Every corner. Every input from the driver, translated into numbers. And this is where things become even more uncomfortable. Because when rival teams started overlaying Mercedes data, they found something they couldn't easily explain. The car doesn't just carry speed. It maintains it. Through corners where others lose stability. Through transitions where others hesitate. The W17 stays planted. Calm, predictable, almost like the airflow is always perfectly balanced. And that shouldn't happen. Not consistently. Not across different tracks. Because normally, aerodynamic balance shifts. Corner to corner. Speed to speed. Load to load. But here, it doesn't. And that's where a new theory begins to emerge. One that goes beyond wings. Beyond the diffuser. Beyond anything visible. What if the real advantage is not a part, but a system? A hidden interaction between multiple legal elements, working together in a way no one else has figured out. Because think about this. The front wing adjusts. Legally. The rear wing adjusts. Also legal. The hybrid system redistributes energy. Completely allowed. The diffuser manages airflow. Within the rules. Each piece, on its own, is harmless. But together, they might be creating something that behaves like active aerodynamics, without ever breaking a single rule. And that's the nightmare scenario for every other team. Because you can copy a part, you can redesign a wing, but you cannot easily replicate a philosophy, a concept, a way of making everything work together perfectly. And this is exactly why frustration is turning into urgency. Because if Mercedes has built a system instead of a trick, then catching them won't take weeks. It could take an entire season. And by then, it's already over. But here's where things get even more intense. Because there was a moment. A small one. Easy to miss. During data collection in China. Where something unusual happened. For a brief period, Mercedes telemetry dropped. Not completely. but enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to create doubt. Now, that alone proves nothing. There are dozens of reasons for data irregularities. But combined with everything else, it adds pressure. It adds suspicion. And most importantly, it adds attention. Because now, teams are not just analyzing performance. They're watching behavior. Closely. Every session. Every lap. Every micro adjustment of that car. And the FIA? They're watching too. Silently. Carefully. Because stepping in too early could be a mistake. But waiting too long could mean letting a championship slip away. And this is where everything starts to converge. Suzuka. High-speed corners. Maximum aerodynamic load. No room for imperfections. If the W17 is hiding something, if there is a system behind the scenes, if airflow is being manipulated in ways no one fully understands, this is where it breaks. Or, this is where it proves itself beyond doubt. And if it's the second option, then the real question won't be whether Mercedes is legal. It will be something much bigger. How do you stop something that doesn't technically break the rules, but still changes the game completely?